Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Now, the average mortgage rate under Trump in July 2019 was 3.75%. Now it's 6.81%. Average price of gas, $1 less in July 2019 than it is now. Inflation, of course, we all know. Groceries, last month was 4.7%, while under Trump it wasn't even 1%. So isn't that what Bidenomics is?
All right, John Marsh, here's what I would encourage everybody after listening to that audio from Laura Ingraham on Fox, especially folks that have voted for Biden, folks think they want to vote Democrat. I'd say listen to that and then go vote. Those are simply facts. And then after that, if you're still wanting to vote for Biden, call this phone number, 800-662-HELP, 800-662-4357. If you think the policies by the current president, if you think they're good for America, if you think that they are good for you and your family, call 800-662-HELP. But as we've learned here on the show, Hannah, we need to call apparently after business, after they open for business.
I was just sitting here wondering if we should give it a try again.
It's a mental health hotline, but they're only operational during, they keep like bankers hours.
And we found that out the hard way on air one time.
Experience is the best teacher sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
That's producer Hannah, of
Hello.
course. There's Mr. Marsh.
Yes, sir.
Brian Houseworth is here, too. My name is Branden Rathert. Bidenomics Explained. Kamala, this was interesting. She said this over the weekend. I'll tell you first what she's about to say is not true.
Most Americans are a $400 unexpected expense away from bankruptcy.
So she's trying to cite a report that says most Americans, the majority of Americans, if they had a $400 unexpected emergency, they would have a hard time paying that. They'd have to borrow money, and that's not a fun situation to be in. But that's not what this survey was about. It was just saying it would be a hardship. It didn't say if you have a $400 surprise expense that you're going bankrupt. It just says it would be a challenge. But to Kamala's point, when she says most Americans are $400 away from not being able to pay for any kind of emergency expense.
Thanks, Joe Biden.
It's what we call Bidenomics. Can we get a big round of applause for Kamala Harris this morning? That is Bidenomics. Now, welcome to the show. You're going to hear the name Devin Archer a lot today. He's going to be testifying before the House Oversight Committee, and this has to do with the dealings of the guy who is now president of the United States, the dealings of him allegedly and his son. His son, Hunter Biden, was on this Burisma board with Devin Archer, and apparently the name, we know the whole thing, Hunter trying to sell the family name for money, for political influence to countries like China and Ukraine. Devin Archer expected to testify today that Joe Biden, the guy who is now president of the United States, was indeed in the room when Hunter Biden was having these business dealings. That's what this guy is expected to talk about.
That he was on the phone.
That he was on the phone, that he was there, that he was in the room. And the implications, if this stuff is true, the implications, I mean, really, if you think about this, it's not about going after a Democrat president. It's not about that. It's about the president of the United States who is alleged, when he was vice president, to have sold his family name, sold his name for money, for political influence. The implications of that, if this is all true.
Let's be careful. Let's see what he says under oath. But yeah, the suggestions are it's very serious. Let's see what he says in the questioning that comes out, and we'll see what happens after that. But it potentially could lead to more hearings, and there's a lot of different things. But yes, the suggestions out there are very, very serious.
Because you start to wonder what would happen if these things all play out to be true. And we've seen an overwhelming, in my opinion, an overwhelming amount of evidence over the past couple of weeks that keeps saying the same thing, keeps pointing to the same people, and that is the president and the president's son. It keeps pointing there. But I wonder, legitimately, what would happen if Devin Archer, if he comes out and testifies? By the way, interesting developments over the weekend about him potentially not testifying. But what would happen if it was the guy who is now president of the United States, while he was serving as vice president, he helped his son leverage his family name for political influence, not just sell his name to sell stocks and bonds, but for political influence to foreign countries.
And the one we know about, how much money was it? Like, I mean, millions and millions and millions. And that's the one we know about, right? What else was going on?
And what I wonder, too, with this, the Hunter Biden is kind of a different issue, John, but Hunter Biden and getting what happened last week where he said, okay, we're not going to take this plea deal. Remember, part of that plea deal with the tax evasion and then with being a felon in possession of a gun. You know what strikes me? And we talk about the hypocrisy. Joe Biden and a lot of Democrats, they're really big gun control. Let's penalize anybody who's busted with guns. Let's crack down hard on them. And I wonder how personally in Joe's brain at night, not on a stage, not even in public, not to the general public, but personally, when Joe Biden lies in bed at night, because you know how you are when you get conflicted about something. Maybe you told a lie at work or you said something or you were mean to somebody and you're thinking, I've got to make that right, and you don't, and it twists around in your head when you're laying there all alone at night, and that's the worst place to be. I wonder how Joe Biden reconciles that stuff with himself. I'm supposed to be tough and anti-gun. I'm applauding the fact that my son on a gun crime had the opportunity to get off real easy. Don't know how you reconcile yourself with
He's
that
like,
kind of
what
stuff.
flavor of ice cream am I going to eat today? I mean, he's like barely there. I mean, we see him in public. Do you think he's having like these moral internal debates when he lays in bed at night? I don't think he does.
No.
I think he's just working on his next campaign speech to talk about how great the economy is. It seems like that's a trail we've seen with him on the campaign trail so far.
Well, and did you see last week on President Biden's Twitter account, which I'm sure he's never, ever actually been the one to tweet from, he was making lots and lots of posts about how mental health care should be prioritized in America. And a lot of the comments were like, dude, you need to evaluate your own mental health. Seriously.
And apparently, and again, hypocrisy. Democrats, progressives, love and accept everybody. And there's a lot of good tenets to that, accepting people for who they are. I don't have to buy into it, but you can still accept people and be nice. You don't have to be mean. So I'm guessing this personal moral battle finally got to him. And this was with him and his wife, Jill, not acknowledging their 7th grandchild.
Our son, Hunter, and Navy's mother, London, are working together to foster a relationship that is in the best interests of their daughter, preserving her privacy as much as possible going forward. This is not a political issue. It's a family matter. Jill and I only want what is best for our grandchildren, including Navy.
So over the weekend, they put out a statement saying, okay, we acknowledge it. So something got to them. And I wonder, again, it's the hypocrisy. If they're all about family values and accepting everybody, they did not accept their blood grandchild.
Something got to them. It's the campaign, right? The polling numbers.
Yep.
I think that's something the American people, even Democrats, probably couldn't stomach.
And it's like, let's say you say, okay, it's a personal matter, it's a family matter. Let's say you're of that thought. It's a personal matter, it's none of my business, it's none of the American public's business. Okay. But it still speaks to the larger issue. They're hypocrites. They say one thing, they're completely the opposite. We're tough on gun issues, but if my son is charged with a gun crime and gets a sweetheart deal, I'm cool with that. We're all about family and acceptance. 7th granddaughter? Nope, not accepting that. That's hypocrisy.
Well, and I think we've said, like, his hateability score was like 0. You felt bad for him. You couldn't hate him like you could Hillary Clinton.
Uncle Joe.
But I think on this issue, disowning or ignoring, your biological grandchild, I think people could hate him for that, and the campaign saw the writing on the wall.
Well, and I feel like them finally acknowledging her makes it almost worse because she's going to grow up knowing that she was only acknowledged because there was public outcry about it and not because they did it out of the goodness of their hearts.
I thought it was interesting because, as I've heard before, like Karine Jean-Pierre asked at the White House podium, and this has happened several times.
Does the president acknowledge this little girl as his granddaughter? I don't have anything to share from here.
Does the president acknowledge this little girl as his granddaughter? The White House, national TV. Now, I'm sure this young Navy child isn't at home watching TV, watching this stuff. But that is out there. And I think about when this child gets older and she's going to reflect back on how her father, her biological father, and her biological grandparents, how they treated her. Being a kid sucks anyway, doesn't it? As you get older. I mean, you're 3, 4, 5 years old. Life is good. You got very few responsibilities. You got to clean up the room once in a while. You have to be in bed at 9 o'clock. Few responsibilities. And then you get to be a teenager, and then it's less fun. But this little child growing up is going to know that's the history. You mean my dad? My dad? Have you known somebody? I do know. My son was born to a father who wanted to have a preacher's kid in southeast Missouri, wanted to have nothing to do with him. And he was told that, incidentally, by the preacher of this small town in southern Missouri, wanted to have nothing to do with him. So I know very well what that experience is like, what that does to a child, knowing you're not being acknowledged by the dude who is your father and the grandparents. I intimately know what that's like, and that's not fun for a kid. Hypocrites. By the way, coming up 6:35, former Missouri governor getting involved in the 2024 presidential race. Did you see this, Brian?
That is very interesting. Governor Nixon, who's at one time was rumored many years ago to be a potential presidential candidate. You make a point at the top of the broadcast I want to go back to very, very quickly about Vice President Harris, about how few Americans have, I believe, 400. If people take all the politics out of it just for a second, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary because, I mean, one car repair, you have a couple of tires go out or maybe your transmission goes out, I guarantee it's going to be over $400. And if that is just it might be a heck of a lot more than that, but it's a very scary thought. I still think inflation continues to be an issue that is that's really hurting the working poor more than anybody else. It is,
and I hope that's what people are paying attention to. And that is not a fun position to be in. $400 when you're in that situation, and I think all of us have probably been there. There's probably a lot of us this morning that are there, but you're. You're getting out of college and you're trying to figure life out, and things happen, but you know what? That stuff toughens you up, right? It gives you character, because you gotta learn to work through some adversity in life. And
until you look at your 401k.
Yeah, and that's different when you're like in your 50s and you're looking at your 401k kind of dwindle away. That's kind of a different story.
But the problem is right now with interest rates, people are going to be like you said. I mean, if you run into a problem, you're going to be borrowing that money, and you're going to be and it's just going to compound. I mean, I remember being really young. My fridge goes out. Like, what do you do? Luckily, at the time, it was like we were doing great, so I could 0% finance it and pay it off in installments. I don't know that option is available.
I was going to say, don't you know a good electrician?
Oh, yeah. This fridge had other problems.
The good electrician in the family, by the way.
My dad Pops.
All right, coming up. Morning Bell. Actually, we'll do that at 8:25. Daily DC Rundown coming up at 6:25.
There are some names. We're a month out from
I knew there were going to be people that didn't like it, but what I didn't expect was there were a lot of people that actually clapped, and then there were more people that just sat there politely and probably understand and knew what I was saying.
Former Congressman from Texas, Will Hurd, after he got booed over the weekend, Iowa Lincoln Day dinner, over 1,000 people in attendance, and he dissed Trump, saying he is just running to stay out of jail, and he did. That was an interesting observation, because when I first heard the audio, that's the thing that got me. There's 1,200 people in this room. He got some booze, maybe not as bad as you would have expected. My take. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Well, the first GOP presidential debate, is set for less than a month from today. It's coming up rather quickly. You had to have certain polling numbers and donation numbers to qualify, and people have been very creative this cycle, whether they're paying people to go collect their own donations or just giving you free gift cards like Doug Burgum. But it's worked in their favor. Vivek Ramaswamy, who was doing kind of a bundling benefit, and then Burgum, who was paying people for the gift cards, they're on the list. They've made the cut.
Was Burgum's thing, you send me because it wasn't about how much money you would raise, it was how many different donors.
The number of individual donors.
And Doug Burgum said, basically, you send me $1, I'll send you $20. I'm paying you $19 for your vote, in effect.
You needed a minimum of 40,000 donors. And so apparently it worked for them. Somebody who didn't have a plan and who was still on, well, we know, okay, so there are some people on the no-no list. They don't even have a JV stage. They're just out, that we were like, yeah, probably. Asa Hutchison, never thought he was going to make it. Perry Johnson, Larry Elder, Will Hurd. Like, who are these people? Some of these people. Like, seriously. I didn't think Asa Hutchison was going to make it, but Mike Pence hasn't made it yet. And that one really shocked me. I mean, I know people are kind of meh on him, but I mean, that's crazy, right?
I think it speaks volumes. Those folks, it's Trump, and it's absolutely positively not Pence. He said something. Mike Pence did say something over the weekend in the very important Lincoln Day event happening in Iowa over the weekend regarding abortion. Hear what he had to say coming up at 6:35.
So that is coming up in less than a month. There is still time for Mike Pence to make the stage. They said they're working on it. In other Hunter Biden news, so we had the IRS whistleblowers, and they released the Republicans released the transcripts of those shortly after their testimony. Now Democrats are saying, wait a minute, there was another person who testified, and they're saying that testimony directly undermines the testimony of the first two whistleblowers, and they're saying Republicans are dragging their feet releasing the transcripts. I didn't realize this, but according to the House rules, the majority party is the only one that has the authority to release the transcripts. So if Republicans didn't want to, they could just be like, no. But they said they're going to. It's just taking a little bit.
So my big takeaway from that story is, you mean the walls maybe aren't closing in on
I wouldn't hold your breath.
And this was interesting over the weekend, too, John. Apparently, Department of Justice sent a letter to Devin Archer. He's the guy. He was on the board with Hunter, sent a letter. And by the way, he's been convicted of a crime, a separate crime of all this. Supposed to do a year in jail. And he still hasn't gone and done the year. Did you see what happened over the weekend?
Yeah, the Department of Justice said, well, maybe let's just go gather him up before he testifies.
It's time to put him into prison. This is a true story, man.
Well, Devin Archer isn't the only one in court or testifying today. The Mar-a-Lago property manager, who there are additional allegations again, is expected to make his first court appearance today in Miami.
Coming up a few minutes from now, presidential candidate Mike Pence, what he said regarding abortion, and the Missouri gubernatorial candidate who said he might break away from the party take on abortion. That's coming up 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
abortion agenda by doing just what you all did recently here in Iowa, and that is promoting pro-life laws at states across the country. And I believe the time has come for a minimum national standard of a 15-week ban at the federal level.
Marsh, is that the most telling part of that? Was not the words that Pence said, but the reaction at the GOP Lincoln days that he got?
Kind of crickets.
And I don't know if it was because, was it the messenger? Was it the message regarding the abortion ban? And now this abortion issue could be coming into play in the Missouri gubernatorial race. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah.
Hello.
Mr. Marsh is here.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Something we could do for you. 874-9390. 874-9390. Going to get into that. One of our GOP gubernatorial candidates said, yeah, I'd be open if the legislature passed something that had to do with abortion. I would be willing to consider that. We're covering that a little bit after 7 o'clock. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. He's here. Recently hung out with Carla May. Carla May is running for U.S. Senate on the Democrat side. He hung out with her. What is he thinking about her campaign? And then we're going to be talking about some other stories that we're going to be talking about right now with statewide implications. Welcome to the show. 874-9390. 874-9390. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. He's running for governor. Earned himself a headline in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Mike Kehoe, here's the headline. Mike Kehoe sets himself apart from GOP rivals with openness to abortion exceptions. But here's where you have to parse exactly what the lieutenant governor said.
Apparently, he said he would consider approving legislation brought forward by the General Assembly that contains the exceptions. Not that he's going to go out and, advocate for these, but you'd have to think. So the General Assembly can't agree on squat these days, right? So imagine they would all have to all of those senators who don't get along, the House members, they, who are elected from every part of the state would have to agree before that issue even gets to his desk. Now imagine you're the sitting governor and your legislature finally agrees on something. It gets to your desk. Are you going to veto it? Or are you going to, what word did he say? He would consider it. Yeah. Are you going to consider it? I don't think it's mind blowing that if everyone else agrees that, there's an exception for what were the rape, incest, or life of the mother, and all your 163 House members and 34 senators who can't agree on sports betting agree on this type of issue that, gets to your desk. It's not earth shattering to me that you would consider it.
And those state lawmakers elected by the people of Missouri. And the other thing I'll say, we've covered this before, and I get it. Some people, they get a little bit perturbed with us when we bring up the facts when it comes to polling on abortion. We've said for a long, long time this, and we've had folks disagree with us saying, well, we don't think abortion is that big of an issue when it comes to voting. I don't know if I completely agree with that, but I will say this. We've highlighted for years the majority of Americans, for a lot of years, they've been okay with some type of abortion. But what about specifically polling in Missouri as it relates to abortion? Missouri, ruby red state. What about polling for abortion in the state of Missouri? This is from Bellwether Research. 70% abortion in cases of rape or incest. 70% of Missourians in this polling conducted earlier this month, 1,800 adults. And this was specifically in states with strict abortion laws. Missouri is one of those states with strict abortion laws. 70% of Missourians say, yep, abortion in cases of rape or incest should be legal. And you look at some of the other, like if they put other qualifiers to it, like abortion at 6 weeks or a medical abortion. The plurality of Missourians through every abortion at 6 weeks, medication abortions, the plurality of Missourians are okay with some type of abortion. So I don't know. Is that different? Because we say in a presidential race, where do you stand in a gubernatorial race?
Well, and specifically in a primary, the numbers you're looking at are for statewide. I assume that those numbers would be different if you just put GOP in there. But we're going to be addressing the issue, I think, in any event, because, these folks are litigating to high heavens over this abortion initiative petition. They went all the way to the Supreme Court on the fiscal note, and that was really not them. It was the statewide elected officials. But now they're back in court over the summary statement. And I thought, what I haven't done? I haven't actually gone to the text of this measure to see, are they trying to pass something that just allows for these limited exceptions? Absolutely not. It is horrifying what is in this initiative petition, even if you're in the majority on the polling numbers that you just read. And the summary statement, I'll read 2 bullets if that's okay with you, Brandon. The summary statement as it currently stands, again, it's being challenged in court, says, do you want the Missouri Constitution basically to be amended to allow for dangerous, unregulated, and unrestricted abortions from conception to live birth without requiring a medical license or potentially being subject to medical malpractice? Second bullet.
Wait, that would be on the ballot language?
Yep.
That's... I think I know where you're going with this already.
Nullify longstanding Missouri law protecting the right to life, including but not limited to partial birth abortion. I mean, just these, and then I'm going to go on to the third one because it's bad as well. Allow for laws to be enacted regulating abortion procedures after fetal viability. And so basically the initiative says, hey, General Assembly, if you don't care about fetal viability and you want to allow for abortion after that, go for it. That's not, I think that is way outside of where Missourians are. But that is, I don't know that that'll end up being the ballot language, but if you go, you can actually read the text. It's actually a page, unlike, people complained with some of the other initiatives that they were too long. This one is, I think, a single page. So it's available on the Secretary of State's website. I would encourage folks to go read it because you should know how these folks are trying to amend your Constitution. I would say it is scary.
Jim off the text, if Republicans want to win, they have to distance themselves from the abortion issue. Pro-con. The issue itself is the plague. It's an interesting take from Jim. And as we've said before here on the show, it's also a very personal issue. Marsh, you think abortion issues had any different concerns on us? And it should, because this is the states now that are making these rules. It should be more of an issue for voters. Does this have people thinking Monday morning? They're thinking about, okay, is it Eigel, Ashcroft, or Kehoe for governor of Missouri? Primary a year away. What are people thinking about that this morning as it relates to the abortion issue?
I think the more they hear about the abortion issue and the potential for lawmakers to take it up again after they come back, presumably in January, probably focuses the average person a little more. I don't know if it changes their thought about who they're supporting for governor, because, on the GOP side, you're not going to have any, pro-choice folks in that crowd, I wouldn't imagine, in the primary.
Now, a former governor is getting. This is a group that we had on the show recently. It's No Labels, and this is kind of it's not necessarily. And they told us specifically on the show. They said we're not third party. We just want a different option than the other two parties. We want a third option, but we're not third party. So Jay Nixon, former Missouri Governor Jay Nixon, he's joining No Labels' effort to lay the groundwork for a moderate third-party presidential ticket in the 2024 election. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, of course, he was governor up until 2017. He is going to serve, the Dem is going to serve as No Labels' Director of Ballot Integrity. And here's why, and what I thought was really interesting, I don't know if there's anything I like what Jay Nixon did. My favorite Jay Nixon story, John, whenever Pete Kinder, former lieutenant governor, whenever he was running, when Pete Kinder was running for governor back in 2016, we'd get him on the show, and every time we would ask him about his relationship with Jay Nixon. And it got to the point where, we were laying money down on it, and we were just waiting because we would have a nice conversation with the lieutenant governor about buying Missouri, about this, about policy issues. And then me and, Brad Trinago, former Wake Up Mid-Missouri family member, we'd sit here and throw money out on the table and say, how long is it going to be? We'll bring up Nixon and see how he goes in. And we'd be having a great conversation. Then we say, well, Mr. Kinder, what's your relationship with the governor like now? Well, Nixon, I wrote him a letter, and it would change the entire tone.
They were not the best of pals.
They were not the best of pals. But what I find interesting is the reason that the former Governor Jay Nixon is getting involved. Apparently, he told the Associated Press that he wanted to get involved when he learned that groups aligned with Democrats. So Democrats working to stop No Labels from securing ballot access in key states. And as a Democrat, Jay Nixon said, well, that's BS. And he said, what do I say to those Democrats? You're entitled to your opinion, but we are also entitled to our constitutional and statutory rights to allow Americans to have another choice.
Well, this whole ballot access issue, though, has been harped on by the Libertarian Party for many, many years. And it's actually Republicans and Democrats, which Jay Nixon is one, who over the last many years have been increasing the requirements for ballot access. I remember reading this article. Reason Magazine does a really good job of covering this ballot access stuff. And I guess there was an independent candidate or a libertarian candidate who wanted to challenge Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, funny, you have to go out and collect these signatures to even get your name on the ballot. You don't have to do that if you're a Democrat or Republican. And I guess in Georgia, they said it's one of the more strict requirements, but you would have to collect signatures of 5% of all registered voters in your district, which in a House district means you need like between 20 and 25,000 signatures. And you think about how much money that, we know how much, or I know a lot of folks in Missouri know how much it costs to go out and collect initiative petition signatures. Not an easy task, especially if you're limited to a particular district. And they basically said, it's virtually impossible. And then that's just in one state to get on one, and so you think about trying ballot access for, bigger races or whatever. I think it's interesting now that Jay Nixon is suddenly like, yeah, everyone should have ballot access because, the folks in the Libertarian Party have been arguing for years that both Republicans and Democrats are shutting them out.
So check this out. This is how worried Democrats are. Last week, a couple of very prominent Democratic groups, Third Way, and then the really progressive Move On organization. I thought Move On was started by Hillary Clinton. They hosted private meetings on Capitol Hill, both groups differently. Hosting meetings on Capitol Hill with dozens of chiefs of staff and senior aides to the House and Senate Democrats saying, man, we got to stop no labels. They are freaking us out because no labels will cause Joe Biden to win. We're afraid no labels is going to help launch President Trump to another victory. So Jay Nixon, former governor of Missouri, getting involved. And listen, I love the idea. Vote for who you want to be president. If you think it's somebody that's not on the GOP ticket or the Democrat ticket, you should be able to do that. You should be able to get out and vote. Coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, the cost of some back-to-school items. Stephanie obviously is a mom, very familiar with this. It's we've got a tax break holiday, details on that, on how you can save some money. That's coming up 5 minutes.
Nasdaq up 267, S&P 500 up 45.
It's from Friday's Dow closing. Coming up 8:25 Morning Bell business news. Little twist only. Stephanie Bell can give you a look at the stock futures. And right now, getting ready for it's the big tax-free weekend when it comes to back-to-school shopping. Starts Friday, August the 4th, goes up through Sunday, and something different this year. And this is kind of, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody here, but...
Sure you're not.
I'm pretty predictable, aren't I, Hannah?
Yeah.
News outlet in Kansas City. I'm pretty sure I have double checked, but so the news outlet in Kansas City, they have a story. Clothing, school supplies, computers, even disposable diapers can all qualify for the school sales tax holiday. But here's the thing. And we know this because we've had local entities over the years. And, John, I think Cole County, Jefferson City, Boone County, City of Columbia, you could still say they'd get rid of the sales tax, but the local municipalities, a lot of them would still say, yeah, we still want to get paid on that stuff. But new law this year that says, nope, you've got to exempt the local. And the city and county sales tax, too. However, this news outlet in Kansas City says here's all the towns that will not be honoring that. And I think that is inaccurate. New law this year, 2023. Meanwhile, have you started any back-to-school shopping yet, Steph?
Absolutely not.
You put it off till I'm with you, man.
She's got 3 kids. That's a lot of back-to-school shopping.
I'm trying to figure out so they started something new, and I will tell you the first year I had to try to do it, it was like a scavenger hunt for all the different colors and the junk they needed. And I ended up online and I went to like 4 different stores in town, and it's very specific now by like color and brand and all of that. Sharpened, unsharpened, halfway sharpened. And I can't. So the school, and I think I'm probably getting ripped off, but I don't, I'm trying to figure, I don't really honestly know how much it is. I've texted my husband, but there's a box. And you pay some service, and then when you show up, the box is there, and it's supposed to be all the stuff that they need. And we went to that because it was just too much time trying to find all these, things they needed. So
I haven't had to buy back-to-school supplies for a lot of years, but from what I understand from parents nowadays, it's a scavenger hunt. Some of the things they put on these lists, like you need to have a left-handed number 3.5 purple pencil from Ticonderoga. A left-handed pencil? What the heck is a left-handed pencil? And I think a lot of times, like you get a dog, John, and you start training your dog. You sit, stay, and then you start training your dog to do goofy stuff like chasing his tail and just doing all kinds of weird things. Why? Because the dog will do it. I think that's what they do with these back-to-school lists sometimes. They start putting, you need a left-handed pencil. They're just thinking you're going to do it, and you're going to have thousands of parents being in the aisle of the grocery. Where the hell's the left-handed pencils? I don't know where the left-handed pencils are. And then somebody at the school district going, left-handed pencils.
Is there really such a thing as a left-handed pencil?
Sure there is.
You'd find it next to the left-handed bacon stretcher in aisle 8.
Or the blinker fluid.
The blinker fluid.
So no.
And buckets of steam all in the same aisle there at Walmart.
Thanks.
I'm getting Scott Faughn, host TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Every Sunday, check your local listings. Airs all across the state, and it's great, man. It's focused on state politics. Recently hung out with Carla May. Now, this is somebody we'll want to know because she is on the Democrat side running for Senate. She wants to upend Josh Hawley. What do we think about her campaign? Scott Faughn's going to be joining us a little bit after 7 o'clock. And also his thoughts on former Governor Nixon joining No Labels, and then Mike Kehoe saying, in effect, it looks like the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, you think they mischaracterized what Lieutenant Governor Kehoe said regarding abortion, or did they amplify a very small aspect of what he said when it comes to abortion?
Must have been a slow news weekend.
It must have been. By the way, D.C., they're on August break, so lawmakers, so maybe it'll be slow with the exception of the big thing, which Fox News has here in a few minutes. Devin Archer going to be testifying today. Friend, board member on Burisma with Hunter Biden.
Update, these boxes of school supplies, one is $70, one is $80. So you're looking at, hundreds of dollars if you have multiple kids.
Gosh, here's some pencils, man. Isn't the school supposed to give you the paper and all this?
And my kids come home with nothing except for a computer these days. So, where'd all those school supplies
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Well, this wasn't an overnight decision. As I've served in the state legislature for the past 14 years, I have thought about this for over 2 years now, and I started the process of informing people, sometime last year when I was running for re-election as state senator. Credibility, integrity, honesty, and credibility, and the ability to work with people and not divide, trying to be united and not divisive in this United States right now is very important.
State Senator Carla May wants to be U.S. Senator, chatting with his St. Louis television station after she announced recently she is running for Senate on the Democrat side, wants that seat that current U.S. Senator Josh Hawley holds. Scott Faughn, this week in Missouri Politics, hosts the TV show Missouri-Based Politics, really, really good show, also has the publication, the Missouri Times. He's joining us in studio right now. You hung out with Carla May recently, had dinner. Your takeaways?
Carla May is the most genuine person. If you had Carla May on this show, you would agree with 30% of what she said, but everything she said would have a reasonable pitch on how she got there. She's funny. She's actually hilarious. I mean, Carla May is nothing that you think she is except for very liberal. And she was going to run for governor or U.S. senator. She picked this one. And I'm going to tell you, in this situation, an African-American woman has a big advantage in a Democrat primary. That party is very small, very concentrated in the big cities. And there's a lot of folks in that party that want to vote for an African-American. They want to vote for a woman. If they can vote for both, she beat an incumbent state senator in a primary to win her current state Senate seat. I think she has a major advantage over her primary opponents. And listen, Josh Hawley's going to get reelected. I mean, barring some dramatically huge event, Josh Hawley will be reelected to the United States Senate. And but on his way there, if he could sit and pick the exact person he does not want to debate, it's Carla May. She's going to quote scripture to him. She's going to say, "Can you feel me, Josh?" She's going to be far more in tune with a regular person swinging a hammer in Columbia today than, frankly, a Ivy League educated lawyer is. Now, her conclusions are going to be very different from that guy's conclusions. A guy driving to work today does not agree with her, but I guarantee you a guy that's at a gas station waiting in a long line to buy soda after working on a hot day, he'd rather stand in line with Carla May than Josh Hawley. I'm just going to tell you.
Why do you say that?
Because she's funny, and she can relate to him, and she's real.
But isn't the general consensus that her jumping in the race means that she'll split the vote with Wesley Bell and it gives a leg up to Lucas Kunce? You don't see it that way?
I think Wesley Bell's a smart politician. I wonder, lots and lots of this is a show place. There is not a realistic sense. Lucas Kunce may have the outside belief he can win. The people running from Wesley Bell, Quentin Lucas looking at this, Carla May, they know the odds are long. And so if you're running in a show thing, you don't run in a show thing to lose the primary. That would actually hurt you. Running against Josh Hawley is all upside for whoever gets that nomination. There's so many national groups that hate Josh Hawley, and Josh Hawley specifically does things to make folks hate him. And that if you're liberal, he tweaks you. So I think it's all upside. And her personality, you could see a national star, another Stacey Abrams or somebody. Her personality on the national stage will connect because she's real.
So my dealing with her, we hung out, we sat next to each other at this year's annual prayer breakfast, Governor Mike Parsons' prayer breakfast, and I'd had one other dealing with her before that. She's not offended by me, which is a good start because I gotta tell you, Scott, sometimes in the Capitol when I go up to a Democrat, that's the I didn't get that from Carla May, so already I'm kind of like,
That's why you have to take Stephanie with you every time.
Right.
She smooths things over.
Smooths things. She doesn't hate me. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
It's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Mr. Marsh is here.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Houseworth is here too. Our guest, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, also hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics, Carla May. I recently had dinner with her and want to get some insight on her. And I think bottom line is she'll never beat Josh Hawley. Incidentally,
probably not.
I remember 2018, 2019, after Josh Hawley took office, there was a lot of talk, Hawley for president 2024. Why did he back off of that? And I don't know the answer to that. But there was a lot of talk. Maybe it wasn't his talk. Maybe it was us talking. But what happened to that talk?
I think there was some thought in those circles that Donald Trump would win re-election. Frankly, most United States presidents do win re-election. And nobody has ever thought Mike Pence was a particularly strong candidate. I listened to your audio. It's dangerous to play that early in the morning, Brandon. You should only play that after about 7:30. You play a Mike Pence drop, and people are going to fall asleep going to work. I think Josh Hawley thought I could beat that guy, but he can't beat Trump.
Here's the audio Scott's referring to. Listen to this. See if it puts you to sleep this morning at 7:13.
And we can end Biden's radical abortion agenda by doing just what you all did recently here in Iowa. And that is promoting pro-life laws at states across the country. And I believe the time has come for a minimum national standard of a 15-week ban at the federal level.
Can you speed it up a little bit or something?
Sorry. What'd you do?
Well, and I know earlier when you played that clip, we were talking about, the very polite, I guess, applause from the audience. And I was sitting here thinking, Mike Pence cannot make anything sound exciting at all.
And he tried there. Did it sound? He was waiting. He was building up. He was expecting some big applause.
He should get in a room alone with some women. I think that might help him. So it's almost cruel because Millie is with me today.
Millie is Scott Faughn's daughter.
Branden Rathert, fan club president. So she likes radio, no problem. Gussie, not so happy to be up this early, is with me. And you play a Mike Pence drop while I'm trying to get him into this.
Torture.
I mean, it's just a punch to the gut.
How old is Gussie?
He is 7 years old, and he is not a Mike Pence fan. He doesn't even know who that is.
And I didn't mean to catch you off guard by asking you how old your kids are.
I got it. I hit it right on at 7:15 in the morning.
So his kids, Augie and Millie here. Millie's favorite thing here on the radio show is What's Hot with Hannah, which we're getting ready to do about 10 minutes from now.
She's gonna have the watch on that too, by the way.
And it's the feature, and more importantly, whether we can be on time or not. Jay Nixon, former governor, getting involved. This No Labels group fascinates me. We've had them on the show before, and basically they're and it's weird because they explain to us we're not third party, we just third option. So we're not a party, just third option. Jay Nixon getting involved, and the former Democrat governor said because he was upset that Democrats are trying to keep ballot access away from this group, No Labels. Did you find it odd that, I think of all people, Jay Nixon on a national, to an extent, in national spotlight just doesn't seem to fit very well?
Oh, I disagree with you totally. I think that Jay Nixon, the Babe Ruth of Missouri politics, no one in the history of this state has gotten more men and women to walk into a booth and check Jeremiah W. Jay Nixon than any other Missourian, from Thomas Hart Benton to Kit Bond to name your legend, Stuart Symington. Jay Nixon's the Babe Ruth of Missouri politics. He is so ticked. Jay Nixon has this great quote I've never forgot. He said, when Democrats honor work, they win. When they honor handouts, they lose. Jay Nixon knows how to win votes. He knows how to get that guy I was talking about somewhere in Columbia today that doesn't care that much about politics, but he'll vote. Jay Nixon knows how to talk to that guy about something he cares about. And I think that's more Jay Nixon kind of giving a middle finger to Democrats who've taken the party. I mean, look at Missouri. The people that they nominate are not like Jay Nixon. They're not like Claire McCaskill, and they lose. And like you have a throwback here in Columbia. Stephen Weber is very much in that mold of, he talks about things regular people care about.
What's that gal that lost really bad? Jess. What's her name?
Piper.
Piper. She's way out there.
She does not.
Her Twitter page is a trip. It's so fun.
Interesting about that. So Jess Piper and I was on the set of your TV show one day, and I was excited to meet her because I was familiar with her Twitter presence.
Yep.
I was like,
she's very good.
I can't wait to see her. We're going to... Completely different in person. She was a puppy dog, man. She
is no Jay Nixon. I mean,
no. And look, I think Jess Piper planned to do exactly what she planned to do here. She has a Twitter account. It's very influential. Lots of Republicans interact with it all the time. She plays them like a fiddle for what she wants. It was never to win an election. She didn't. Jeff Faughn does speak to people in Northwest Missouri. Jess's issues, frankly, don't. Now, the thing I always like about Jess is when she gets off some of the social stuff. If you live in extreme Northwest Missouri, are you better off with a higher tax rate and more government investment or not? I would argue there are plenty parts of Northwest Missouri that would be. Now, you can make that argument it's good or bad or not, but then just, are you better off today? Jess has an argument.
Our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, also hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics.
Scott, I remember back when, I think it was the Associated Press's line when Jay Nixon started cutting and cutting and cutting. Cutter in chief was the line they used. I remember even bumped heads with State Auditor Tom Schweik then. Do you think the support would be out there for a Nixon run for whatever?
I think Jay Nixon seriously thought about running for United States Senate. And at the end of the day, I talked to the former governor quite a bit. I really enjoy visiting with him. I believe he just felt like the Republicans at some point would coalesce and not give the Democrats Eric Greitens run against. And the end of the day, Jay Nixon's the Babe Ruth of Missouri politics for a reason. He was right. I think he thought about running. That was more, he was just so offended by Eric Greitens' approach to government, period. No, I think Jay Nixon knows his time is up. He always wanted to be a United States Senator, but I think if you ask him, that's a younger man's game to get in and build that seniority. Joe Biden called him personally and said, you'll have $100 million to run. I believe they probably meant that. I think Jay Nixon is done. I think he'd like to see his former party start talking about how do you help people that work for a living again.
All right. Did you take Millie to see the movie Barbie yet?
I did not take Millie to see the movie Barbie. I took Millie to Rockbridge, and she caught her first fish.
Ooh.
A 4-pound whopper. Yeah, no, it was legit. It was her second ever cast. So we're out there casting and trying to catch trout. Her first cast, we lose the bait, which, it caused a little too hard. Second cast, boom, 4-pounder. Third cast of her life, boom, 3-pounder. Me and her grandfather were sitting there wondering what we've done wrong this whole time.
Yeah. How about that? Millie Faughn and then Augie Faughn, kids of Scott Faughn. Missouri Times also hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. A couple of cool things you have posted right now. If you go to MissouriTimes.com, you can see This Week in Missouri Politics for this past weekend. Aaron Baker of Axiom Strategies is joined by Congressman Mark Alford. Kind of the basis, real quickly, of that conversation that we'll watch.
Isn't Alford so smooth?
Mm-hmm.
He came on here last week. He was so good.
I'll tell you this, we get texts when he's on. People are like, I wasn't sure how tough he was going to be. People are liking his toughness and directness right now.
You could tell that it'd be like if you ran for office and you started talking about issues. You could tell Branden Rathert's been in the communications world for a while. Well, Mark Alford's been in the communications world for a while. It's so funny. Alford can handle some of that stuff. Gussie's sort of like Kehoe shouldn't really talk to journalists anymore because it's so funny to me that I loved Stephanie's talk about the journalists will sift through like they're panning for gold as a 49er for something he says that's not directly insane right-wing goof stuff, and then they'll blow it up into the biggest thing in the world. Mike Kehoe might be the most accomplished pro-life legislator in Missouri history. Getting a pro-life bill passed is not easy. Getting it passed through the Senate without a PQ is almost impossible. He was there for 3 of the major bills, one of them that outlawed abortion. And it's so funny that people say, well, he's not pro-life. Well, then who is?
Yeah. Scott Faughn, go to the website at MissouriTimes.com. You can see some of the stories, including the latest episode of This Week in Missouri Politics and his daughter, Millie. You'll hear Millie mentioned on the show from time to time. She loves What's Hot with Hannah every morning as she's going to Blair Oaks Middle School. She listens. Want to see if we're going to be on time. And, Millie, I'll tell you, we are not going to be on time this morning, and I will tell you this: it's your dad's fault.
Oh no, I knew that was going to happen.
It's always
going to happen.
I said quickly, Scott, your thoughts on this? I'll just.
a good captain goes down with the ship, Rathert.
I knew the bus was going to back right over me. I knew I was going under when I walked in this room.
I can even hear Millie protesting.
Wow.
Oh,
Scott, thank you for coming in. Augie, Millie, it's always good seeing you guys. Appreciate what you do.
Well, you've ruined the drive home, Branden, but thank you.
Coming up, you're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
I love it when Stephanie travels because she inevitably has flight horror stories, and this is one that might top any of her stories.
And that's coming up. Ish, which means it's
7:26.
And we're blaming directly Scott Faughn, Missouri
Well,
Times.
you're blaming directly.
Last question, Scott, quickly. What are your thoughts on this? And then he went on for a minute. Otherwise, we would have been on time. And the funny thing is, the biggest fan of What's Hot with Hannah Millie Faughn, who's a student, Blair Oaks Middle School. She's in studio. And her biggest thing about it, I want to say, is are they going to be on time this morning? She's in studio with us this morning. Still not on time.
Yeah, and you would never let Scott keep talking intentionally so that we would be late, right?
What's hot with
You'd
Hannah?
never do that.
I'm not. He's a bigger dude than I am. I'm not going to shut him up.
Every time Stephanie flies somewhere, it seems like she comes back with really great travel mishaps. At least they're great for us. They're probably not great for Stephanie, but they're kind of entertaining for us to hear about after the fact.
Point of view and perspective.
They tried to seat her next to a pit bull on a recent flight.
That was probably the worst.
And, flights always get delayed, yada, yada, yada.
A pit bull or pit bull?
A pit bull.
Oh.
Very big difference.
Different story. Okay.
Last week, though, there was a flight from British Airways that went viral. And it's because they were doing a 12-and-a-half-hour flight from Turks and Caicos to London. And they had to make a little pit stop in the Bahamas because the refrigerators on the plane went out. And so all the food that they had on board went bad.
Oh, that's
and
gross.
They weren't able to call in better catering on such short notice. So when they landed in the Bahamas to, refuel and stuff, they had to send some of the flight attendants into the port to order KFC chicken for everybody.
Gross.
So there's been a couple tweets that have gone viral of, flight attendants handing out Kentucky Fried Chicken with tongs going down the airplane aisle. And everybody only got one piece, which I feel like is kind of stingy.
That is stingy. I like KFC, but it's not like an airplane food. One of my more recent horror stories was I watched people just totally destroy like a whole bag of Taco Bell before we were getting on the plane. And I'm thinking there's just like could you not have eaten a healthy breakfast? I don't want to be sat next to the people who just ate a bunch of Taco Bell on the airplane. Well, it was horrifying.
Can you imagine being on a 12-and-a-half-hour flight and only getting one piece of KFC chicken the whole time you're on there?
2024, we are putting the majority at risk. And it's not just impeachment that does that. Other issues like abortion, et cetera, also put those members on the plank. But the one thing I'll say is this, is that whatever the evidence shows us, we ought to follow the facts. And we have to be better than Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi really politicized the impeachment process. We do not want to do that here.
South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, by the way, making news again. After we highlighted her on Friday and what she said on Friday, we're going to be covering that here shortly. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
John Marsh is here.
Yes, sir.
Where's Stephanie, Hannah?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. I was having a moment.
Oh, we're glad you could join us. 874.
I heard her asking for a plunger. I don't know. You might not want to go in there for a while.
Oh, God.
I'm having a hair moment.
Oh,
I'm trying to curl my hair. It's
By
just
the
a
way,
mess.
this reminds me a serious question, and I'm asking you kind of specifically because you're a mom. and
About plungers?
glad you could join us, by the way.
Okay.
I do have a serious question. As it relates to something we talked about Friday on the show, right at this time, and as we get ready to talk about that story kind of being furthered, but by the Babylon Bee. All right, Babylon Bee. Are you familiar with the Babylon Bee? If you're into like good political satire, and this is good, like you get onto the BabylonBee.com, and typically like 7.5 out of their 10 headlines are pretty good. It's good stuff.
They're consistently good.
They're very good. So if you're looking for good political humor, by the way, Jim Dyke, Jefferson City News Tribune, I think it was Friday's Jefferson City News Tribune had a great cartoon, people talking about how it's hot. And he's, were you around in the summer? I think it was 1953 or 1954 when temps were exceeding 110 degrees through parts of mid-Missouri. And that was a great cartoon by Jim Dyke, Jefferson City News Tribune. But I have a question here because Nancy Mace is back in the news. Last time we talked about Nancy Mace, it was just past Feel Good Friday. And we were highlighting a talk that she gave at a prayer breakfast.
It was a real Feel Good Friday.
It was very Feel Good Friday. Prayer breakfast on behalf of fellow South Carolinian Tim Scott. Is that what you said, South Carolinian? Tim Scott.
I'm not sure.
Works for me. I don't know.
Here's what she said at the prayer breakfast.
And when I woke up this morning at 7, I was getting picked up at 7:45. Patrick, my fiance, tried to pull me by my waist over this morning in bed, and I was like, no, baby, we don't got time for that this morning. I got to get to the prayer breakfast, and I got to be on time, and a little TMI, but he can wait. I'll see him later tonight. But
that stuff happens in real life, but I don't know that I would talk about it at a prayer breakfast.
Well, please don't, because we want you to get invited back. So
You're already skating on thin ice with the whole falling off the stage incident.
But two things. So now Babylon Bee's kind of picked up on this a little bit.
They were on it last week, actually. They posted a story, and the headline is, Nation's wives all announce they, too, have to get to a prayer breakfast.
Sorry, babe. I got to be at a prayer breakfast in 45 minutes. This is going to have to wait until the weekend.
And then the caption on the post says, in quotation marks, I know, third prayer breakfast this week. Crazy.
But what I'm wondering, John, is so today's last day of July. We're already this coming weekend is sales tax break on back to school items, and pretty soon, right about this time, all across mid-Missouri, kids are going to be in their cars with mom and dads going to work. And I'm wondering, like, do we change from our summertime rules here on Wake Up? Is this something we would be covering?
Rules is a very loose term.
8 a.m. hour would be better, probably.
8 a.m. So we're going to have to, there's going to be a fundamental shift in how we do things here on the show, I think, John, because we've got to be mindful there are kids in the car.
You have to explain to the kids what a prayer breakfast is, I guess, huh?
And that is the most uncomfortable question in the world for a parent. To be listening to the radio and a child to hear something on Wake Up Mid-Missouri and turn to mom and go, Mom, what's a prayer breakfast? As a parent, and I know I've been there. I've had my kid when he was a kid, young. He would turn to me and say, hey, Dad, what's this? What's that? And it would be sometimes uncomfortable, but ultimately, I think more importantly, would be great opportunities to then have those discussions about whatever it is that he was asking about.
Yeah, but maybe at 7:35 on the way into school is not the best venue to have those conversations.
Probably.
874-9390. Quick text. Dave says traffic is backing up somewhere, and I guess that's
right on cue.
We got an update from Brian Houseworth. Columbia police are working 2 separate crashes on westbound I-70 near Lake of the Woods exit. Boone County Joint Communications tells 93.9 The Eagle that the crashes are at the 131-mile marker. That is near East St. Charles Road. Please avoid the area.
Dave says traffic is backing up. It's affecting the on and off ramp as well as the interstate. But I wonder if we should play these comments again. Let me ask you, would one of your kids, let's say even your oldest, would he understand what's being said?
Let's not play it again.
But the kids aren't on the way into school
they would.
yet.
I don't think they would get it.
All right.
Unless we sat there and went, oh, they're talking about having sex.
Let's see, we didn't
I think we'd be good.
Yeah. So as long as we don't do that, I don't think most kids would. It would be like going to see a Disney movie, right?
There's a lot of innuendo in Disney movies that you missed as a child.
That's right. I would highly encourage you as an adult, any Disney movie you watch as a child, go back and rewatch those Disney movies.
Or SpongeBob was another one that I liked growing up, and looking back and watching old episodes now, it's like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
874-9390. 874-9390. First time the Cardinals have done this in like 20 years. Number one, they're going to pretty much guaranteed they're going to have, well, it's not guaranteed. They're going to have a losing season. Did we get busted, Hannah?
Oh, we got a text from listener Sam at 874-9390. And Sam is the gentleman who texted us on Feel Good Friday saying that he was going to be wearing Daisy Dukes and a halter top into work. And so he just texted in and said, Mom, what are Daisy Dukes and a halter top?
Good point.
I just got a text from my husband, hey, Drew and Amelia, who are on the way to the dentist this morning.
They want to know, what does prayer breakfast mean?
Yes.
Is that what they're asking?
Mm-hmm.
874.
Good luck, Chris.
93.90. Cardinals making a couple of trades. And, John, this is kind of like first time this has happened. Number one, they're going to have a losing season. They have not had a losing season since Hannah was 7 years old.
Ouch.
2007, Hannah was 6 or 7 years old.
No, they had a good weekend. Heck, shut out the Cubs yesterday.
Yeah. Only lost 3 out of 4.
Which, thank God, if we're going to beat anybody, please let it be the Cubs.
Yeah.
Beat the Cubs, traded off Jordan Montgomery, Jordan Hicks, and another pitcher. So it's the first time the Cardinals have done this. And like usually the Cardinals are shoring up. You look at the stats since 2000, just since producer Hannah was born. That was the year Hannah was born. The Cardinals have been to the playoffs 17 times. In Hannah's lifetime, she only knows the Cardinals to be a huge success. In Hannah's lifetime, the Cardinals, since 2000, the Cardinals have been to 4 World Series. They've won 2 of them. There probably is. I don't know of any team I don't know if there's any other team that's been to the World Series 4 times since 2000. But it's a pretty stellar accomplishment. Anyhow, GM is now. So the Cardinals have always been shoring up around the trade deadline, which is this week. And now they're letting folks go. And it's something they haven't had to do in a long time. And isn't that weird? Because we get spoiled as Cardinals fans. If you're a Royals fans, unfortunately, we get used to it. But when you're a Cardinals fan and you're used to them doing well every single year and they don't do well, it's kind of
sad.
Yeah, kind of a bitter pill to swallow. Coming up, 8:25, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell Business News little twist. Business News little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can give you. Dow was up 177 points on Friday. We'll get your futures coming up at 8:25. Some of the stories Brian Houseworth is working on for you. Former Callaway County Sheriff Clay Chisholm, I should say. He's going to be in a courtroom today. This has to do with the DUI charge from last year. It always breaks my heart, some of these people, especially in law enforcement. You get into trouble, and it tends to give everybody in law enforcement a bad name. But I know Mr. Chisholm to be a really good dude. See what happens when he is in courtroom today. And the other thing that's happening today, and I'm wondering this Trump thing. So the guy who is apparently, he was like the head groundskeeper at Mar-a-Lago, and apparently this dude, he's going to be in court. He's making an appearance today, and this has to do with him apparently being asked allegedly by Trump to delete any video that may have shown Trump showing secret documents. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to bring this dude in. He's head of maintenance at Mar-a-Lago, pretty hefty position. But I'm going to guess the feds are going to scare this guy to turn on Trump, whether whatever it is he says is true or not. The other big thing that we're keeping an eye on for you today, Devin Archer is going to be appearing before a House committee, the House Oversight Committee. This is the one headed by James Comer. And here's why this is important. Devin Archer, good buds with Hunter Biden. As a matter of fact, you read some of the text and email exchanges they had, you would think it was me and Marsh chatting. They got a pretty serious bromance going on, Marsh. I think it would rival the one between Marsh and Rathert.
Do you think?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we'd be asking quite the same things, we'd hope, but,
We'd be talking in different dollar figures. But it's important because Devin Archer is expected to testify, all right? This is important. This is why this is so important. So if folks talk about this at work today, you're gonna know. It's important because this guy who's best buds with Hunter, who was on that Burisma board with Hunter, he is expected to testify. More than once, Joe Biden was in the room with his son Hunter when he was doing business. Now, to Stephanie's point, okay, so at the time when he was vice president, allegedly selling his family name for political influence to other countries, incredibly dangerous. That puts the country, that puts you in peril. But the other thing, it's the lie that gets you. Because Biden, how many times has Joe said, I didn't have anything to do with that, and they've changed the language.
Yeah, I think he basically said, I didn't talk to Hunter about his business. I knew nothing, basically. And now he's just saying, well, I wasn't in business with Hunter and I think he's changed because he knows that this guy has the receipts in that, maybe he was on the phone calls, maybe he was in the room, and that he can no longer say, well, I had no idea. And this is the testimony I've been waiting for. I can't wait to see what's said today because I think it really matters on whether people. I think we can already not trust Joe Biden, but the blatant lie about his son, I think I'm not going to say the walls are closing in. I'm not going to go that far. But I'm really interested to see what's said today.
Coming up a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, artificial intelligence In the courtroom, artificial intelligence. We're going to be covering that here shortly, but I want to mention, I thought this was really cool. You know, we have an app. You can download the app for free. You go to your Google Play Store, your App Store, whatever it is, and you search 90. And I think you do have to search 93.9 The Eagle to get the app. At least that's what I had to do the other day. Of course, I have a phone that's 7 years old, but it's a Droid, so that speaks volumes about the Droid phones, about Samsung. And then KWS, you download, and they're free, and it's pretty easy. As a 52-year-old dude, I can do it. Unfortunately, my 7-year-old phone can't do it. But we have two different folks in different areas of Texas listening this morning. Ben text 874-9390 says, I'm listening on the app in Galveston this week. And Melissa says, I am listening from Dallas this morning. We wish you all a wonderful Monday.
And for our Wake Up family members who have been listening to either of our apps for a long time and haven't noticed yet that there's a new update available, I would encourage you to check that out for a fun little surprise.
Update it because there is something cool in it for you if you update that, download the new app. Also off the text, I might share this a little bit after 8 o'clock. It's a text that actually came in over the weekend. And I love this because it's somebody saying, I guess kind of repeating back to us, one of the goals here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, it's not to come on and complain about politics. It's not to do that. It's to show, okay, when these people say this, this is what this means. Here's how it affects you. And over the weekend, from a dude named Levi, he lives in Fulton, sent us a very, very, very lengthy text that came in over the weekend, but that kind of says, listen, here's how you guys are helping. We might share that. And I'm not doing it to fish for compliments. I'm not doing it to say,
Are you sure?
I promise. It's just because it epitomizes. And I'll gladly listen if you feel like if it's fishing for compliments, I would own up to it. But it's just really cool. AI in the courtroom. You know, my new best friend is artificial intelligence. I love that thing. You get on and ask it just about anything, and sometimes it's even accurate with the answers it gives. Not always the case. There is a law case, and apparently there's even an app specifically to write like legal briefs. And apparently, it's not always very accurate. And this caused...
Go figure.
I know, right?
It's actually got a name for when the AI starts making stuff up. The robots hallucinate.
So, which is a very lofty term, John, for getting it wrong, making a mistake.
That's what they did to us real early on with ChatGPT. It decided to fill out what we asked it. It started picking random facts it thought out of the air.
We asked it about producer Hannah.
Yeah, I think it said I was a member of like some black journalism club.
And married.
Yeah, had 2 kids.
All that stuff. And it started out fairly accurate.
It did.
And then it went, and then it started, as we say now, it wasn't misinformation or disinformation or not working properly. It was...
eating gummies, apparently, or on mushrooms. It was just hallucinating.
And then hallucinating. That's the new phrase. So whenever there's misinformation, how long is it going to be before somebody starts tagging this on news outlets and politicians? Oh, they weren't lying. They were hallucinating the facts. They were making up facts as they go along. Has anybody found... I've used ChatGPT for fun. Maybe 2...
Whoa, careful. We don't need all the details, okay?
2 honest-to-goodness, maybe 2 or 3 honest-to-goodness professional applications. But other than that, haven't found any real uses for it. What about with you?
No. This law firm got a $5,000 penalty for letting ChatGPT write its brief, and it had incorrect citations in it. So, no, I don't use it for the law firm. I have used it for the trolley company and for some other personal stuff. You can ask it about like social media and names and handles and those kinds of things, and I find it useful.
Is what I find is kind of a good idea.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Oh, they gave me so much press, John, so much press. Billions, they say, frankly, billions of dollars. Can you believe this? Billions of free press. I said, keep it coming. We're going to jail. We're going to jail, right? Nobody goes to jail like I do. El Chapo couldn't do it that quick. He couldn't do it that quick.
Obviously not Trump, but obviously a very good impersonation, Marsh. You like that?
Good.
Well, that's not too shabby. By the way, so we keep talking about this Devin Archer in his appearance before this committee in the House today, and why that is so important. Devin Archer, good buds with Hunter Biden. I tell you what, Devin Archer and Hunter Biden had a romance that rivals the one that currently takes place between yours truly and Mr. Marsh. You read some of these texts and emails. It's very sweet. They were very, very fond of each other.
And nobody's threatening to send us to prison for a year.
And there is no talk
at least now.
No talk of $5 million and things like that. It was like a $12.18 lunch tab or something like that. But this Devin Archer testifying today, here's why this is so important. He served on the Burisma board. This was the energy company on the board with Hunter Biden that apparently used his dad's name to sell political influence to the tune of millions of dollars. Those are the allegations. Now, you remember, what has the White House been saying and Joe's been saying? I didn't know anything about my son's business dealings. Here's why Devin Archer is so key. He is expected to testify. He is expected to say this today, that in effect, the president of the United States is lying to you when he says he had no knowledge. He is expected to testify that on more than one occasion, when Hunter was on his phone in a room conducting business with these foreign groups who were paying him and his dad, who was vice president at the time, paying them millions of dollars allegedly for political influence, that Joe was sitting there. When Hunter said things like, I'm sitting here with the big guy now. And again, it goes back to, is that a crime? It's sketchy, especially when you are the vice president, now president of the United States. That's not the worst part. The sketchiness, it's the cover-up.
Yeah, it's the lying. I mean, they're both bad. They're both bad. And, and again, we've heard from our friend Raven who said, Trump would get indicted for cutting a tag off of a mattress. And this, you're talking about, foreign influence. You're talking about tons of money. You're talking about using your power for, enriching your relatives. It's all bad. I guess House Republicans are now saying they might be returning to D.C.
Yeah, so right now they're on their big August break. They take time off and don't do anything. So a lot of times is what happens is we start talking about things like Hannah's wedding and food being served at county fairs, because on a national level, not a whole lot to talk about. But Matt Gaetz is saying, hey, we should all come back and do this because there's some other sketchy things that happened over the weekend in D.C. as it relates to this stuff.
And I don't normally agree with Matt Gaetz, but I think holding their feet to the fire and keeping the pressure on while we've got momentum is important here.
Yeah, but it's vacation.
No.
Can't we deal with this on Monday? Can't we deal with this when we come back from vacation?
No.
Matt Gaetz says no, we need to deal with this right now. Good morning. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
It's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Mr. Marsh is in the house.
Here, sir.
My name is Branden Rathert. Something we could do for you, 874-9390. 874-9390. We're less than a month away from the big debate, GOP presidential debate. It's kind of interesting to see who has not qualified for that debate. In my mind right now, the biggest name that's not qualified to be on that debate stage, Mike Pence.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was actually, I thought he had already qualified. I don't know why I had assumed he had qualified, but apparently not.
I did too. And you know why? Because he's the former vice president. And he's not.
It's wild.
He's not on there right now. That's less than a month away. Meanwhile, big event over the weekend in Iowa Lincoln Days event. And to give you an idea, kind of Lincoln Days, you have local Lincoln Days. Of course, we've had Cole and Callaway County, Boone County Lincoln Days. All the counties do them. And then we have a statewide event. Stephanie and I have been a couple of times. Kansas City several years ago. Sarah Huckabee Santa's keynote speaker. What a cool time that was. This year, we were in Springfield. The year before that, St. Louis. So it's just a big event where a bunch of Republicans, politicians, they get up and there's dinners and people talk. And anybody who's anybody in the GOP politics is at that event. And that's what was going on in Iowa over the weekend. As a matter of fact, Stephanie, she covered this on her Morning Bell, Daily DC Rundowns last week, about DeSantis and Trump and all these folks, Ramaswamy, all going to be in the same room. A lot of buzz this morning. Apparently, Trump walked out. He's walking out to a Brooks and Dunn song. The Brooks and Dunn song, great song from back in the day, called Only in America. And everybody's really hyping the part of the lyrics where Trump walked out to the song.
Please welcome President Donald J. Trump.
So you want to listen for the song lyrics here.
Alrighty then.
That's like the person who gets a hold of the chyrons. This person got a hold of the walk-up music and totally trolled Trump.
I would think it's intentional.
Yeah.
You
have to. It has to be.
Because CNN and MSNBC, they're flipping out. Oh, my God, you hear the poor fortuitous situation that happened to Trump. He came out to a song and it mentioned going to prison and going to jail. This is another big, courtroom appearance today. And this is the guy who's he's accused Trump. The story is, went to this guy, Mar-a-Lago. Guy was head groundskeeper or something, and Trump went to this dude apparently and said, hey, man, can you delete any of these tapes that might have me showing these documents to other folks? So that's this guy's in court today.
Yeah, Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira is expected to make his first court appearance. Of course, this is the amended superseding charges that we just heard about last week.
Can you explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old?
Well, I think there's 2 different charges, but the only one against this guy. So the 2 charges that we heard about 2 new incidents, allegedly, last week was, one, Trump bragging about that document that we had the audio of to people on the classified documents, and the property manager isn't involved in this, but the other charge was that Trump had worked in concert with some of his people, and specifically the property manager, to perhaps destroy some security footage. And I think there's also accusations that he's moving stuff around.
874-9390. Will Hurd, Texas congressman. I hate to, I want to pretend. Listen, there's times I want to come on here and I want to pretend like I know everything and I know it with confidence. If I were to do that, I would be lying to you. So frankly, I got to tell you, I was a little surprised. Will who? Will Hurd. He's a Texas congressman.
Haven't heard of him before.
Ba-doom-ts.
Right?
I'm
Stephanie
serious.
Bell.
I didn't know. Who is this guy?
I don't know, but you get points for that Hannah-ism there.
All right.
Good.
You're welcome.
That's good.
That's pretty good. Anyhow, so he said something over the weekend, and folks they're making a big deal. He was at this event, and Trump was there, and people booed him when he said something about Trump. But I think there's a bigger thing here, and I'll play you these comments, about 28 seconds long.
Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison. And if we elect... I know. Listen, I know the truth. The truth is hard.
So he goes to a GOP, and by the way, at that dinner, 1,200 people in attendance. That guy's got some marbles, because you know what's going to happen. If you get up at a Lincoln Day event and start saying, hey, Trump is running to stay out of prison, which that didn't even make any sense, by the way, you're getting it. But 1,200 people, the booing wasn't as loud as I thought it would be.
That's a fair point.
And so when I first heard it, I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting, because that's what happens. You go to these GOP events, if you say anything that some folks might think is critical of Trump, they're going to get incensed and they're going to get triggered.
And they're a rowdy crowd. They're loud, and they will cheer and boo, and they're fired up. In fact, it caught me off guard a couple years ago when I had not been in a bit and I had gone, and I'm used to going to lawyers' conferences and stuff, and everyone's totally silent. And so right in the middle, somebody would say, and they'd be like, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, almost interrupting people. I mean, it's a a fun bunch.
It's intense. You would think like you're at a Buck Cherry concert in Jefferson City or something, and the mayor is getting up on stage and dancing with the group Buck Cherry. It's like that when you go to a Trump
Former
event.
mayor.
Former mayor.
I remember it was an election panel, and my law partner Mark Ellinger was on it, but I think he was moderating. But Ashcroft was on it too, and Ashcroft said anything, and he said something about the media, and someone just yelled from the back, "Liars!" I mean, it was fun, but you would expect them. I think you're right. The booing wasn't that loud, so you're wondering, are people just staying out of it?
Because you're at a GOP event again, and there's a lot of folks that I honestly believe this, that are still even in the political realm, elected office holders, elected servants, that I still believe are like, yeah, this Trump thing. Listen, he's not going to win as much as we all want him to, and he put me in that group. I want him to be president. I do. It's not going to happen. Every single poll, for what polling is worth, even today, latest polls shows that Trump will lose a general to Biden. DeSantis will beat Biden in a general poll after poll after poll, for what polling's worth, continues to show that. So to be able to go to an event like this and say that, and not to be roundly booed out of the building, I thought was kind of interesting, because you know how that's going to go. Meanwhile, the other thing that happened over the weekend, what do you know about this letter from the Department of Justice, John, regarding Devin Archer? This is crazy. This is, and by the way, these officials, they've earned this reputation. It is proper for us to question the timing of this letter. What do you know about this story, John?
This was a deal where DOJ folks said that, why don't we just go out and get him and warrant and lock him up before he gets to testify? How about that?
So Devin Archer, he's the guy that's testifying before this House Oversight Committee today. Department of Justice on a Saturday. I don't know what the Department of Justice hours are on a Saturday. I don't know what kind of hours they're keeping up in there. Sends out a letter apparently to Devin Archer's attorneys. He's the guy served on the board with Hunter. He's the one testifying today, expected to testify. Our now president of the United States was in the room when Hunter was making business deals to the tunes of millions of dollars. He's got a conviction for something else, supposed to do a year and a day in jail. Still has not served that sentence. Apparently, Department of Justice over the weekend says we ought to set a date for him to report to prison. Now, a lot of folks, when it first came out, was we want him to report to prison. The timing, highly suspicious. You want him to report to prison before he goes and testifies in Washington, D.C. today? These are real things.
He sent the letter to the judge, too.
Yeah, to the judge. These are real things that happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Coming up, we are going to be doing your Morning Bell business news. A little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, the social media companies are fighting back. There's long been kind of a consensus about something they're doing that's negative, and they said, we went out, we got the facts, and we're here.
Morning, it's 8:25. Time for the Morning Bell business news with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, I think Facebook is having a good day. I can't say what their stock's looking like in particular, or a good week today, but I can say the rest of the futures are in the green and looking up. For years, we've said, social media is really nasty, especially Twitter. People get on there, they lie, they start arguments, they troll, and it makes us sad. And it's the reason for all of our problems. It's why people get bullied. And, we were sad and bullied before social media, though. Does anyone remember that?
We got to blame something. There's a reason. It's not my behavior. It's not your behavior. There's total lack of ownership. We got to blame something.
Well, and this article is saying maybe social media isn't why we hate each other. Facebook did participate, apparently, in helping commission this study. I believe it was out of NYU, but it was a multi-year study, and they started to say, hey, is it the algorithm that is making us polarized and hate each other? And surprisingly, the research says these findings challenge popular narratives, blaming social media echo chambers for the problems of contemporary American democracy. And they said, yeah, the algorithms, they kind of put you in your own echo chamber, but you already hate each other, and it amplifies that a bit, but it's not the root cause.
It's nothing new. It's stuff we already preconceived notions. It's stuff that we already think, we already believe, and then we go to these places and it keeps reinforcing, oh yeah, Democrats are idiots.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Remind us to tell you the story one day. Epic school project Hannah did several years ago regarding confirmation bias.
Well, and they even switched up the algorithm on certain people and said, let's put it in, totally chronological feed, or let's show them different stuff. And they found that when they made changes to the algorithm, it had no effect on folks' political polarization. And so they're saying the algorithm isn't why you guys are extremists. You were extremists to begin with.
And I don't know, John, you remember, because it used to be things like Facebook. There wasn't, I don't know if they had applied the algorithm to it, but you got onto Facebook, you would just see who had most recently posted. That was the order in which you used to see things. Stephanie's posted, then Hannah posted, then Marsh, and then and so on and so on. That's how you saw it. And then you remember there was a time you'd get onto Facebook and well, this post is from 2 days ago. Why is it at the top of the feed? Well, because it fits into my algorithm. Somebody was talking about the Sturgeon restaurant, and people know I like to go and eat at that restaurant.
Or somebody boosted the post.
Exactly. And so it's just way different now.
Well, there's just so much noise and traffic on those sites and they want you to obviously they want you to log in every day. So if you're just seeing it's not as good to see a chronological recitation of everything anymore. So the algorithm typically bumps up posts like your friends have liked and interact with and stuff. It thinks it's trying to read your mind, stuff it thinks you're going to like. And so it does kind of put you in an echo chamber, but it's saying, no, that's not the reason why we are so polarized. Now, I guess 4 of these studies were released in the last week, and they all kind of interlock and say the same thing, but they said this might not be the end of the story, because apparently there are 12 other peer-reviewed studies / papers that are in the works that we can expect to hear about social media coming up soon.
Hannah did a paper when she was a student at Mizzou a couple of years ago on confirmation bias. It was kind of epic because not all of the participants in this study knew that it was taking place.
It was for my psychology class. I had to teach someone a topic and then write about the psychology terms that we had learned about in class, how we had ran into a couple of those real life applications of those terms. And the one that I found with you was confirmation bias, because I tried to teach you how to use Google Calendar.
So Hannah says, hey, we're going to start using Google Calendar on the show. And I'm like, I want to say, okay, sure. But it was more like, all right, what's this?
You didn't think that you could figure it out. And so the second you ran into a hurdle as we were learning, you immediately shut down and said, see, this is why I told you I couldn't do it.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, John Marsh.
Brandon, do you still look up like polka covers of songs in your free time?
Yes.
Weren't you doing that several years ago?
Yes, there was a great, it's a Baroque version of, they do Rally Around the Family, Pocket Full of Shells. Who the heck is the name of that group? Bulls on Parade. Help me out. My goodness. Anyhow, but they're kind of like alternative rock, and there's some like polka versions of them. Pretty good stuff. Welcome to the show, Steph. What was the highlight of your weekend?
Oh, we went down to Lake Carmel, and we taught my kid, with the help of a bunch of people, taught my kids how to water ski. So
no kidding.
It's about time.
How about that? Hannah, what about you? What was the highlight of your weekend?
Oh, we had our first wedding shower over the weekend.
Key word first. So is it like you do more than one now?
Well, yeah, it's like our family lives far apart from each other, so you do one in one location and you do one in another, so everybody can make it. And then I'll probably have one here at work soon. Nice. Yeah.
Hannah getting married on Christmas Eve right there on 63. You know that you pull off the side of the road, it says Capitol View Access, where you can pull off on 63 right before you get into Jeff City if you're heading south.
It's going to be kind of cold.
Yeah, Christmas Day.
A nice view, though.
Incredible view. Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I can't remember. I haven't checked the invitation recently. It's around Christmas. I know that.
What was the highlight of your weekend?
There you go. I was getting ready to ask the same thing.
You were crabby last week when we forgot to ask you.
He doesn't give us an opportunity to ask because he's always moving on to the next thing.
And now I'm wishing you wouldn't have asked. No, I'm kidding. I went to a Gasconade County Fair over the weekend.
Oh, fun. Was it hot?
Mm-hmm.
It's good. I heard we were talking to some folks today about going to the Cole County Fair. It's actually going to be nice today.
The weather, I'm telling you, here over the next few days, somebody's blessing the Cole County Fair. There's a chance of thunderstorms today, but this is going to be like stuff maybe popping through in the afternoon, watching radar right now, and some things here and there. But otherwise, our high today only 82. Tomorrow, chance of thunderstorms, 84, and then Wednesday even only 91. Still a lot cooler than 103 like it got to last week.
I even wore a hoodie today.
874-9390. Any highlights? John, any highlights you're thinking from Cole County Fair? The food, obviously. That's always this fair I went to. But I saw Tracy Byrd. I don't do live music, but saw a Tracy Byrd concert Friday night.
I had to ask who that was this morning.
Yeah, I was like, who's Tracy Byrd? I'm like, well, he was big back in the 90s when I used to work country music.
I think I had it on good authority at the Cole County Fair is going to have polka band doing Rage Against the Machine
Rage
covers,
Against the Machine. That's who I was looking for. Rage Against the Machine. And David, thank you on text for the help there too. I appreciate that. Highlights Cole County Fair, the food, obviously, and the weather, I'm guessing. And today, I guess they're doing Dollar Ride Day today.
And there's a rodeo, and one of my favorite artists, Ashley Cook, will be there on Thursday.
Do they do the weird fried, like every county fair? I didn't see anything weird at the Gasconade County Fair, but like they do the weird, like they'll fry. You can get a stick of butter, get it coated and fried, and you can eat it at the county fair.
I know they do that at the state fair for sure.
Yeah.
So Anchorfest in Centralia happened at the beginning of June, and one of the new vendors that I saw there, they were doing like the fancy drinks in a hollowed out pineapple, like you would get at a resort maybe, but they did it differently, and they did the pineapple like upside down. So they drilled into the bottom of the pineapple and kept all the leaves on the bottom.
Those are like pokey.
Kinda. But my fiance just had to have one, and I'm sitting there like, we're walking around my hometown of Centralia while you're drinking out of an upside-down pineapple. And for anyone...
Back to your SpongeBob references, right?
Right? But does anyone remember what an upside-down pineapple stands for?
Yep. I was going to ask, but didn't want to be inappropriate here. I thought there was some odd significance to an upside-down pineapple.
Yes.
It's like a swingers symbol. And so I was embarrassed to be seen with him for a little bit.
And I think the funny, because not everybody knows that that's a reference, and shame on us for those who do understand the reference.
Well, no, our Wake Up family members will remember that we learned the hard way live on air one morning.
And that was the Eric Greitens thing. We were wondering about Eric Greitens and that hairdresser in his basement if they had a safe word. Like, hey, when it gets too weird, you got to, you could say don't stop, but you got to have a safe word. And people guessed that maybe the safe word was pineapple. As a matter of fact, to this day, people will text the show at 874-9390 when they get tired of us talking about something or uncomfortable or triggered, and they'll text pineapple.
Well, and that rule came before even Stephanie and I were a part of the Wake Up family.
For sure.
And when Stephanie came along, she had to educate us on what a pineapple stands for.
She was the one that knew, incidentally.
I thought y'all were talking about, because when I moved to Ashland, people asked me about it because they said, hey, did you know there's a ton of swingers in Ashland? And I still have not confirmed this fact, but people were educating me on it, I guess.
Everybody knows who Rage Against the Machine is?
Yes.
Do some pretty heavy alternative rock music. Here's what Hannah was referring to.
I saw Nelly play or rap in front of the St. Louis Symphony, and it was excellent, I will say. I loved it.
It sounds like a pep band, like a marching band
It
rendition.
does.
It kind of is, and to give you an idea, this is typically what Rage Against the Machine is.
This is the Mike Pence version.
Stephanie's calling you uncool.
And I'll own it. I am not cool. Kamala Harris. She's at it again.
Oh, boy.
Weekend, right? Check this out.
Most Americans are a $400 unexpected expense away from bankruptcy.
Not true. And I know that because, number one, Kamala is the one saying it. Number two, she's trying to refer to this study that said basically a $400 emergency could cause somebody to have to go to a credit card or to have to borrow it. But I will give Kamala points for this. She just explained Bidenomics. Didn't she?
Yeah, that most of us, if we had a $400 emergency right now because we've been spending so much on groceries and gas and everything else, it would really hurt.
That's Bidenomics. Kamala, we thank you. I have not heard a more simplistic demonstration or a more simplistic explanation of what Bidenomics is.
Without assigning any blame, of course.
That is Bidenomics. By the way, marijuana in Missouri continues to be a huge seller. We're on 12-month calendar year. We are on pace to zoom way over $1 billion medical and recreational. And now there's even classes being like you can go to colleges and take classes on marijuana.
Yeah, a Kansas City community college has 3 new classes. Now, you can't get credit, but you get a certificate. And they've got, you can learn how to be in the industry. You can do cannabis cultivation specialist, cannabis retail specialist, or a cannabis extraction and product development specialist.
And so I'd wonder who's signing up for these classes? Are these people that already have an intimate knowledge of the inner workings of marijuana? Or is it somebody who, valedictorian, is a member of the chess club in high school, and all of a sudden is going to this school and I want to study weed?
It's stoners trying to bring their GPA up. That's who it is.
I was going to say, I knew a lot of stoners when I was in college that would have loved to get some sort of credit or class. But like, Mom and Dad, it's part of my curriculum.
Is this one of those classes like you just like, oh man, I'm sinking below a 3.0. I better do something to bump that up?
It's an online class. So actually, I think like people in mid-Missouri could take the class.
I took an online class on wine when I was in college at Mizzou. I did.
See, and this is my thing, because we were just talking about weird college classes. Chris gets so mad when I beat him at bowling because he had a class where he just showed up to the old Westgate in Jeff City twice a week, and it counted as like PE credit or something. I'm like, you paid money for that?
Well,
I got PE credit for bowling in college.
Yeah, it was a college credit for Chris.
A lot of colleges teach how to play golf as part of their like sales and marketing curriculum.
I wonder if they teach pickleball now. But wait, we have to go back to this wine thing.
Yeah.
You weren't even 21.
When I took the class, I wasn't. So it was an online class.
State-sponsored university.
Teaching underage kids about wine.
How about that? Taxpayer dollars. Taxpayer dollars going to fund.
And a lot of my dollars. Thank you.
The education. We're teaching kids who aren't even 21 were teaching them courses on booze. This is a very interesting development this morning, Miss Bell.
Breaking news.
Go on, Hannah.
It was an online class, and it had 2 in-person labs. This was during COVID.
Labs.
Right. And basically, it was teaching you how to taste wine, but I wasn't 21, and so it offered an alternative assignment for those of us that were not of legal drinking age, and I had to write a paper instead. I'm like, this sucks.
Without ever having legally tasted wine?
Labs.
Pretty much. We learned a lot about the different types of grapes and the different regions that they come from, because it was a food science class.
I think she should get some relief on her college loan for taking that course.
There you go.
I also took a class on intimate relationships.
Really?
Yeah, I have the textbook in my car, probably.
Really?
Why do you carry that around with you?
It's because I never clean out my car, and I brought it in to have Rathert read one time, and I don't think it ever made it out of my car.
I'll read it.
Should I go get it?
You probably need to read it.
I don't.
We've got a really great photo on the Wake Up Facebook page from a couple years ago.
I don't know how.
It just fast forward to the end to see how it wraps up.
Remind me to approve my kid's schedule before I pay any money for this stuff.
A course on intimacy or on relationships?
Intimate relationships. So there's a lot of psychology.
Yes.
All right, coming up, we're going to be doing some...
I'm going to go get it out of my car.
And that's what we're going to be covering on the show tomorrow, because Stephanie's not here tomorrow, as I recollect.
Yes.
So we can do this tomorrow, because usually some of this stuff we can't do. All right, coming up 5 minutes from now, some leftovers. We have some interesting things that happened in Missouri over the weekend. Didn't get a chance to get to before we get to show. I'd like to sneak this in before we get into the Gary Nolan show. An Oklahoma judge was caught scrolling through social media during a trial, but it wasn't just any trial. It was apparently a murder trial, and there's cameras in the courtroom, and there's an overhead camera, and she's being investigated now by a state ethics panel after she was caught on video scrolling through her Facebook account during a murder trial. During the 7-day trial, and this is northeast of Oklahoma City, she can be seen on the footage using her phone for minutes at a time. A ceiling-mounted security camera captured the judge tapping away as she held the phone in her lap throughout jury selection, opening statements, and witness testimony. If you're a judge in a murder trial, Steph, I'll defer to you. Do you need to pay attention to jury selection? Do you need to pay attention to opening statements and witness testimony, or is it okay to just do your social media when that stuff is?
I would hope that you were paying attention.
Marsh, what you got?
Hugh Grant upset the little people.
I saw this.
Did you see this?
Yeah.
They're doing a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So instead of, hiring little people like they do to play the Oompa Loompas, apparently they digitized Hugh Grant and put him on a little person's body. So now all the little guy actors who are out in the cold and can't act in the movie, they're none too happy with him.
I have a very similar story, actually, John. They're doing a live action remake, Disney is, of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yep.
And of the 7 dwarves, only one of them is a little person, so it's like a token little person. And the community is upset. They are not happy. They took the one role for, little people, and they completely just crapped all over it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm guessing limited job opportunities. For little people. And one of the big things they can do and make really good money is some of these, like, Oompa Loompas and 7 Dwarfs and things like that.
Be like remaking what? Wizard of Oz and casting the, Portland Trailblazers as the little guys or something.
But I think it's almost worse that only one of the 7 is an actual little person.
That is weird. Like, you either do it or you don't. But and as sensitive as everybody is nowadays, I'm wondering who thought it'd be a good idea to take an actor like Hugh Grant and let's just CGI his littleness or whatever. Like,
what could possibly go wrong there?
Who's thinking that that's okay? And here's the thing. People say, well, these actors, this person's playing that, and I don't care what color the race of Spider-Man is. I really don't. I remember people flipped out. Well, Spider-Man, he's always been white. Well, Spider-Man's always been a comic book character. I don't know if you knew that or not. He's always been a cartoon, basically. Well, I don't care what color a make-believe character is. But some of these things, come on, man. This is non-consequential.
I think in this case with Disney specifically, it's extra ironic because they're so for diversity in these live-action remakes. And then they go and almost completely cut out an entire diversity group.
The folks, you're right. And that's what we like to call, that's hypocrisy. We like to say this is what we are. For example, President of the United States, we're all about gun control and let's come down hard on gun criminals. Unless it's my son who's convicted felon in possession of a gun, let's go soft then. That's hypocrisy. Disney, that's hypocrisy saying we want all this, but we're gonna put in a token little person to play one of the 7 dwarfs. What you got for leftovers?
McDonald's is spinning off a new brand. I hadn't heard this. Hannah, you're our resident fast food queen. You always have good stories, breaking stories.
Yeah.
Cosmix.
I have not heard this one, actually.
It's going to be a different, spin-off brand completely, and it's Cosmic is named after a alien character, see this guy? That was in their advertising in the 80s. And so they've had such success, I think, with the Grimace thing and Gen Z that they're like, we're going to capitalize on this and name a restaurant after an alien from the 80s.